He's not dead. Black Maid stops Korean Mafia boss's funeral to save him. What happened next shocked. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The cemetery was silent at first. White tents fluttered in the sole morning breeze. Mourners dressed in black filled the rows beneath the canopy. A golden casket rested above a dark open grave lined with fresh cement. Inside the casket lay Park Jae-won, billionaire chairman of Hanseong Group, the most powerful business empire in South Korea with deep ties to the underground. His eyes were closed, cotton tucked into his nostrils, his skin pale as marble. His brother-in-law Kang Min-ho stood beside the casket with a folded handkerchief pressed to his face. Tears glistened in his eyes. A Buddhist monk cleared his throat and prepared to begin the final rites. Two workers stepped forward to lower the casket into the earth. Then a voice tore through the air like thunder. "Stop! Don't bury him!" Everyone turned, stunned by the outcry. Some mourners lifted their phones immediately, recording the unfolding scene. At the back of the gathering, a woman in a worn grey dress pushed through the crowd. Her skin was dark, her hair pulled back tightly. Her uniform was that of a household servant, faded and patched in places. A small cloth bag hung from her shoulder. People stepped aside as though she were a storm approaching. The woman pointed straight at the casket. Her hand trembled, but her voice did not. "He is not dead. I said it once, and I will say it again. Do not bury him." "Who is she?" someone whispered. "The African Maid," another muttered. "Security," someone barked. Two guards moved to block her path, but she stepped around them and kept coming. The wind caught the hem of her dress. She stopped at the edge of the ceremonial mat where the casket rested and turned to face the entire crowd. "My name is Grace Okonkwo," she said, breathless but firm. "Listen to me. This man is still alive." Kang Min-ho stiffened. His expression hardened into cold stone. "Remove this woman immediately," he snapped. "She has no business here. Chairman Park is my brother-in-law. He has passed. We will lay him to rest in peace," the mourners murmured. The monk lowered his prayer beads. The grave workers hesitated. Grace pointed again, her gesture unwavering. "He has not passed," she said. "He was given something, a substance that slows the heartbeat. It cools the body. It fools the eyes. He looks dead, but he is not. Give him the antidote, now." A wave of shock rippled through the mourners. "Antidote?" someone whispered. "What is she talking about?" another voice asked. Camera lenses tilted closer. A reporter leaned in. Kang Min-ho's face twisted with barely contained fury. "Enough!" he hissed, turning to the guards. "Get her out!" But Grace did not move. She lifted her chin and spoke directly to him. "Kang Min-ho," she said softly, as though she had known him for years, "you know exactly what you did, and Dr. Shin knows it too." The name dropped like a stone into still water. Every eye flicked to the left. The family physician Dr. Shin Dong-hyuk stood there with his stethoscope tucked into his coat pocket, his lips pressed thin. He looked at Grace the way a man looks at a door that was supposed to stay locked forever. "Monk," Kang Min-ho said sharply, "continue the ceremony." The monk hesitated. His fingers trembled over his beads. Grace took one slow step closer to the casket. Her eyes softened when she looked down at Chairman Park. "Sir," she whispered almost to herself. "Hold on." Then she raised her voice to the gathering. "Check his mouth, feel his wrist, warm his chest. He is still there. I heard their plan with my own ears." Kang Min-ho spoke of a quick burial. Dr. Shin signed the papers. "Please give him the antidote." The silence deepened. Even the white tents stopped flapping as if listening. A woman in a dark purple hanbok stepped forward from the front row. Her hands shook visibly. "If there is any chance," she said, "we must check." "Unnecessary," Kang Min-ho snapped. Sweat glistened on his forehead. Everything was done properly. The doctor confirmed his death. "Let them check," someone called from the crowd. "What harm could it do?" another voice added. "Just check." The murmuring swelled into a wave. Heads nodded. Eyes narrowed at Kang Min-ho. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. Dr. Shin cleared his throat and forced a thin smile. "This is absurd," he said. "Grief makes strangers speak nonsense. I examined him myself." Grace turned to face him. Her voice was calm but unyielding. "Dr. Shin," she said, "Chairman Park built your clinic. He paid for your daughter's education abroad. He trusted you with his life. Something flickered in the doctor's eyes. He glanced at Kang Min-ho. Min-ho gave the smallest shake of his head, and that was the moment Grace set her bag on the grass, knelt beside the casket, and did something simple. She removed her outer shawl and folded it into a pillow. "Please," she said to the monk, to anyone brave enough, "help me lift him just a little. He needs air. Then open his mouth. 1 drop is all it takes." Silence, the kind that presses against your chest. An elderly woman stepped forward. Her silver hair was pinned neatly. Her eyes glistened with tears. "I am his aunt," she said. "If there is even one small thing we can do, we will do it." The spell over the crowd shattered. 2 women moved at once. A young man in a black suit slipped his hand beneath Chairman Park's shoulders. The grave workers stepped back to give space. Together, carefully, they lifted Park Jae-won, just enough for Grace to slide the folded shawl beneath his neck. Up close, the chairman's face looked peaceful, almost asleep. His lashes cast long shadows across his cheeks. The cotton in his nostrils stood out white against his pale skin. "Please remove the cotton," Grace said softly. The aunt nodded, and with trembling fingers pulled the cotton free. The air seemed to shift. Grace reached into her bag and produced a small brown vial. It looked old, as though it had traveled many roads. She held it up for everyone to see. "The antidote," she said. "His body was slowed by something toxic. This will bring him back." Kang Min-ho lunged forward, but 2 mourners stepped between him and Grace. "Let her try," one of them said. "If it fails, we bury him." "But if it works, then what?" Kang Min-ho spat. "Then what? Then we thank heaven," the aunt said. Her eyes were sharp as blades. Dr. Shin's jaw tightened. "Do not put an unknown substance into Doctor," the aunt interrupted, her voice low but heavy with authority. "If you are certain he is gone, this will do nothing. Let her try." Every gaze settled on the tiny vial. The sun slipped from behind a cloud and rested like a hand on the scene, on the casket, on the open grave, on the woman in the servant's dress, who suddenly looked like the last hope anyone had. Grace knelt. Her hands were steady now, made strong by purpose. She twisted the cap and dipped the glass dropper into the vial. She turned to the aunt. "Please help me open his mouth." The aunt gently parted the corner of Chairman Park's lips with her fingers. The young man in the black suit lifted him slightly more. Grace leaned close. The entire crowd leaned with her. Kang Min-ho trembled violently. "If you do this," he began, but his voice cracked and died. Grace held the dropper above Chairman Park's mouth. "1 drop," she whispered. "Come back, sir." She squeezed. A single clear drop fell. It landed on his tongue. No one breathed. No one moved. Grace counted under her breath. 1, 2, 3. Nothing. 4, 5. A cold wind shivered through the tents. 6. Grace's hand began to shake. She raised the dropper for 1 more drop. "Don't you dare!" Kang Min-ho shouted, lurching forward. The aunt threw out her arm. "Stay back." Grace squeezed again. The 2nd drop fell, and in that fragile instant between the drop and his tongue, before it even touched, a faint sound crawled up from Chairman Park's chest, so faint it could have been the wind, or a memory of breath. "Was that a cough?" someone whispered, voice hoarse with fear. The drop touched down. His throat moved, his lips parted, and then the air around the cemetery exploded into chaos. Screams, shouts, prayers, and gasps filled the space all at once. Phones tilted wildly, recording what no one could believe. Chairman Park's hand twitched. Then his lips parted with a faint cough. The sound was soft, yet it cut through the noise like lightning across a dark sky. Grace's eyes blazed with hope. She leaned closer. "He is coming back," she said, her voice trembling but certain. "I told you, he is alive." The aunt clutched his wrist and her face lit up like dawn breaking through clouds. "He is warm," she cried. "Lord have mercy. He is warm again." A woman in the crowd collapsed to her knees in prayer, chanting through tears, "God is great. God is great." But Kang Min-ho felt nothing but fury. His face twisted into rage. As Chairman Park's body stirred, his hand darted into his jacket pocket. He pulled out something small and metallic. Its glint caught the sunlight. Grace froze. Was it a blade, a syringe, or something worse? "Stay back," Kang Min-ho roared. His eyes bulged. Spit flew from his lips. "He belongs in the ground. Do you hear me? In the ground." 2 men in black suits lunged toward him, but he shoved them away with desperate strength. The crowd surged backward in panic. Mothers pulled children close. The monk dropped his prayer beads. His voice cracked in fear. Grace did not move. She stood her ground, her worn dress brushing the grass, her face steady against the storm. Her voice thundered again, stronger than before. "Look at him, Kang Min-ho. Look at your brother-in-law." Everyone turned, and there it was, Chairman Park's chest rising and falling, weak but undeniable. Another cough burst from his throat, louder this time. His eyelids fluttered like heavy doors struggling to open. The crowd gasped as one. The aunt screamed, "He is alive! He is alive!" Chairman Park's lips trembled. A hoarse whisper escaped. "Why?" His eyes opened halfway, glassy and confused. He stared at the man looming over him. His voice grew louder, filled with pain. "Min-ho, why?" The scene shifted in an instant. Strength drained from Kang Min-ho's body like water from a cracked vessel. His hand dropped. The metallic object slipped from his fingers. It clattered onto the concrete beside the grave. A small syringe filled with cloudy liquid. Gasps rippled through the mourners again. Guards pounced, pinning Min-ho to the ground as he kicked and screamed. "No!" he roared. He was supposed to be gone. He was supposed to be gone. His words were cut off as the guards twisted his arms behind him. Sweat drenched his face. The mask of grief he had worn throughout the funeral shattered into naked rage and desperation. All eyes swung to Dr. Shin. The doctor had stepped backward. His face was drained of color. He tugged nervously at his collar. Sweat slid down his temple. "I pronounced what I observed," he stammered. "I believed he had passed." Grace's voice sliced through the air like a blade. "Lies. You helped him. You signed the death certificate knowing the chairman still breathed. That was not a mistake." Chairman Park coughed again, stronger this time. He struggled upright with the aunt's help. His hair fell loose across his forehead. His skin was damp with sweat. His eyes, red and fierce, locked onto Kang Min-ho. Tears spilled down his face, but his voice shook with power. "What did I ever do to you?" he said. His words cracked the silence like a hammer. "To deserve this?" Kang Min-ho lay motionless in the guard's grip. Chairman Park's voice rose, trembling with fury and sorrow. "I gave you power. I trusted you with a branch of my empire. I treated you as family despite everything. And this is how you repay me?" The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some wept. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Chairman Park's gaze shifted to Dr. Shin, who stood frozen like a guilty statue. "And you," he said, his voice trembling, "I built your clinic. I funded your research. I lifted you when you had nothing. How could you betray me with him?" Dr. Shin's mouth moved, but no words came. His silence confessed everything. Chairman Park's strength faltered. He swayed. Grace was at his side in an instant, steadying him with gentle but calloused hands. Her voice was soft now, stripped of thunder. "Easy, sir, you are safe now." He turned to her. Their eyes met. His were filled with tears, but beneath them was a fierce, raw gratitude. For the first time, he saw past the worn servant's dress. He saw the woman who had saved his life. "Who are you?" he whispered, his breath shaky. "Why did you do this?" Grace lowered her eyes. Her voice was rough like gravel. "Because I knew the truth," she said. "Yesterday I heard them in the car." He spoke of a quick burial, of silence, of how the empire would be his. "I could not let it happen. Not again." The mourners drew closer, hanging on every word. Chairman Park clung to her arm. His body trembled. His breath was shallow but steady. His voice cracked as he spoke. "You saved me. You gave me back my life." Kang Min-ho screamed again, thrashing against the guards. "It should have been mine. Everything should have been mine." But his cries fell flat, drowned out by prayers rising from the crowd, by sobs from those who had loved the chairman, by the furious glares aimed at him. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police were coming. Grace, still kneeling at Chairman Park's side, lifted her head toward the approaching sound. Her eyes burned not with pride, but with something deeper, sorrow, the memory of her own broken life. It weighed on her like chains. The chairman noticed. He touched her hand weakly. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Do not leave my side." And as police vehicles rolled through the cemetery gates, red and blue lights flashing against the marble tombstones, everyone watched the end of one chapter and the trembling beginning of another, because Park Jae-won, the man they thought was dead, now breathed again, and the woman who had dragged him back from the grave, the African maid they had all overlooked, was about to change everything. Officers stepped forward. Guards shoved Kang Min-ho into their arms. Dr. Shin's knees buckled. He fell to the ground, sobbing. Police read the charges aloud: attempted murder, conspiracy, betrayal of trust. But Grace said nothing. She only held Chairman Park steady as he sat upon his own casket, the man who refused to die. And in that moment, with flashing lights bouncing across her weathered face, the world saw Grace Okonkwo not as a servant, not as an outsider, but as the voice that had stopped death itself. Chairman Park whispered again, louder this time. Tears streamed down his cheeks. "Thank you for saving me." And the crowd, still in shock, leaned forward, wondering what would happen next. The courtroom was overflowing. Every seat was taken, every corner crammed with people pressing forward to witness the case that had gripped the entire nation. Outside, television vans lined the streets of Seoul. Cameras flashed as anchors whispered urgently into microphones. The news was everywhere. Billionaire chairman rises from the dead. Brother-in-law and family doctor arrested in shocking conspiracy. Chairman Park himself entered slowly, supported by Grace on one side and his aunt on the other. His steps were unsteady, but his head was lifted high. He wore a simple dark suit, nothing of his usual commanding elegance, but his presence filled the room. Gasps rippled through the crowd as he sat down at the front. His eyes were fixed on the accused. Kang Min-ho sat in the defendant's dock. His face was pale, his eyes were cold. Gone was the mask of grief he had worn at the funeral. Now his lips curled with disdain as he glanced at Chairman Park. Beside him sat Dr. Shin Dong-hyuk, his head bowed, his hands trembling. Sweat darkened his shirt under the bright courtroom lights. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair and sharp glasses, struck her gavel. This court is now in session. The case of the Republic of Korea versus Kang Min-ho and Dr. Shin Dong-hyuk. Charges include attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and medical malpractice. The prosecutor rose. His voice was firm and cutting. Your Honor, what we have before us is not a simple case of greed. It is the cold-blooded plot of a man who sought to bury his own brother-in-law alive, aided by a doctor who betrayed his sacred oath. Their aim was to seize control of Hanseong Group, billions in assets, companies that employ thousands across this nation. But for the courage of one woman, this wickedness would have been sealed beneath the soil. The crowd murmured. Many glanced at Grace, who sat quietly at Chairman Park's side. Her dress was clean now. Her hair was neatly combed, but her face still bore the quiet strength of hardship. She looked down, uncomfortable under the sudden attention. The prosecutor turned toward Kang Min-ho. Do you deny plotting to poison Chairman Park with a compound designed to mimic death? Do you deny instructing this doctor to pronounce him dead prematurely and rush his burial? Kang Min-ho leaned forward. His voice was ice. I deny everything. This is a fabrication spun by a foreign servant and a man too weak to accept his own body's failure. My brother-in-law was already dying. I merely accepted reality. Gasps erupted. Chairman Park's jaw clenched. He stood suddenly, his voice shaking with rage. Liar, he cried. Look at me, Min-ho. You put poison in my tea. You forced my doctor to declare me dead. You tried to bury me alive like garbage. The judge struck her gavel sharply. Order in the court. But the electricity in the air was uncontainable. The prosecutor lifted a small vial sealed in an evidence bag. Your Honor, this was retrieved from the syringe found beside the grave. Analysis confirms it is a paralytic toxin capable of slowing the heartbeat and making the victim appear dead. Only a trained physician could confirm signs of life. And yet this doctor signed a death certificate. All eyes turned to Dr. Shin. His face collapsed. He sobbed openly. His words tumbled out. I was forced, he cried. He threatened me. Kang Min-ho said if I didn't help, he would destroy me. He said I would lose my clinic, my family. I swear I only signed because I was terrified. Chairman Park's face darkened. Terrified? You let him put me in a coffin. You let them lower me toward the earth. You betrayed your oath, and you betrayed me. Dr. Shin buried his face in his hands. Forgive me, Chairman. Forgive me. The prosecutor faced the judge. Your Honor, we have the poison. We have the syringe. We have the testimony of the victim himself. And we have the witness. The woman who risked everything to speak the truth. Grace froze as the prosecutor gestured toward her. The entire court turned to face her. Whispers rose like waves. That is the African maid, the servant who stopped the funeral. The judge nodded. Miss Grace Okonkwo, please step forward. Grace rose slowly. Each step echoed in the silent hall. She stopped at the witness stand. Her rough hands gripped the wooden rail. The oath was read. She swore. Her voice was low but steady. The prosecutor leaned close. Miss Okonkwo, please tell this court what you witnessed. Grace lifted her head. Her eyes scanned the hall filled with people waiting to hear the truth. She swallowed hard. Then her voice rang out, calm but heavy with honesty. The day before the funeral, I was cleaning the hallway outside Chairman Park's study. A car pulled into the driveway. Two men were inside. Kang Min-ho and Dr. Shin. They were arguing. I heard Kang Min-ho say the compound worked. He is cold already. Tomorrow we bury him before anyone suspects. The doctor said he was afraid. But Min-ho told him to do as instructed or lose everything. The court erupted. The judge shouted for silence. Grace's voice grew stronger. I knew then that if I did not speak, they would bury him alive. I stayed awake all night. When they brought the casket to the cemetery, I ran. I begged them to stop. They called me crazy, but I saw his finger twitch. I could not let them lower him in. She paused. Her eyes glistened. I lost my husband and son years ago in my country. I was powerless then, but not this time. Not again. The silence in the room was thick, broken only by quiet sobbing from women in the gallery. Chairman Park's eyes filled with tears. He whispered, "God bless you, Grace." The defense attorney rose. His tone was mocking. "So we are to believe the word of a household servant, a woman from another country who cleans floors? How do we know she did not imagine these words? How do we know she was not paid by rivals to cause chaos?" Grace's jaw tightened. She stood taller. "I may be poor," she said, her voice ringing through the courtroom. "I may clean floors and wash dishes, but I do not lie. I have nothing to gain, only the truth to tell." The judge leaned forward. Her face was stern. "The witness has spoken with courage. Let the court weigh her words alongside the evidence." Kang Min-ho slammed his fists on the table. "She is lying. They are all lying." But his voice cracked, desperate, hollow. The gavel struck again. Order. As the trial moved on, one truth became clear. The mask of Kang Min-ho had crumbled. The empire he had dreamed of stealing was slipping through his fingers. And Grace, the woman he would never have noticed in his wealthiest days, now stood as the key to his downfall. And as Chairman Park sat with his hand resting near Grace's, a new thought sparked in the hearts of all watching. Perhaps this was not just his resurrection, but hers as well. The trial of truth had begun, and nothing would remain the same. The trial stretched across many days. Each morning the courtroom overflowed with reporters, business executives, and ordinary citizens who had come simply to see Chairman Park alive and speaking. Every evening the headlines blazed across South Korea, from grave to courtroom, the chairman's shocking return. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Kang Min-ho sat stiff in the defendant's dock. His once tailored suits were wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot from sleepless nights. Gone was the smooth-talking businessman the public had once respected. He looked like a caged animal, pacing and snarling whenever a witness spoke against him. Dr. Shin, in contrast, grew weaker with every session. He avoided Chairman Park's eyes, his shoulders bent as though carrying the full weight of his betrayal. Sometimes he muttered prayers under his breath. His fingers trembled whenever evidence was displayed. On the fourth day, the prosecutor called a new witness, Chairman Park's personal driver, a large man with honest eyes named Mr. Yoon. He stepped to the stand. His voice was steady. "Your Honor," he began. "On the night the chairman collapsed, I drove him to the hospital. He was struggling to breathe. But when we arrived, Dr. Shin told me to leave, that he would handle it personally. I asked to stay. He refused. 2 hours later, he informed us the chairman had passed. The courtroom gasped. Chairman Park covered his mouth. Tears streamed down his face. Mr. Yoon bowed his head. I knew something was wrong. The chairman was weak, but not gone. I should have insisted. The prosecutor nodded. "So you confirm that Dr. Shin isolated the victim and prevented any second opinion?" "Yes, sir." The defense team sank in their seats. Their case was collapsing like a wall of sand in a storm. Next came the toxicologist, presenting charts and slides. "The substance found in the syringe is called tetrodotoxin," she explained. "In low doses, it mimics death. It slows the heartbeat. It freezes the muscles. It masks breathing. Without advanced equipment, one could easily mistake the victim for a corpse. This was intentional, no accident." The room fell silent. The weight of evidence pressed down on everyone. Finally, the judge turned to Kang Min-ho. "Mr. Kang, you have heard the charges, the testimony, and the scientific proof. Do you have anything to say before this court passes judgment?" Kang Min-ho rose slowly. His face was twisted, half fury and half despair. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Yes, I have something to say. I cared for Jae-won once, but he loved his empire more than family. Everything was always about Hanseong Group, his billions, his power. And what was I? A shadow in his house, a relative in name only. I was supposed to share in his glory, yet he treated me like an errand boy." Chairman Park flinched as though struck. The audience murmured in disbelief. Kang Min-ho's voice grew louder. His fists shook. "So yes, I wanted it all. I wanted what should have been mine. If he had to die for me to finally live as a man, then so be it. Chaos erupted. Shouts, gasps, and cries of outrage filled the court. The judge banged her gavel furiously. Order! Order! Chairman Park's tears spilled freely. He stood, trembling but strong, his voice rising above the noise. You fool! Power is not stolen. Respect is not taken by force. You had everything, my trust, my support, my family. But your greed drowned you. You tried to kill me, and now you have destroyed yourself. Kang Min-ho's eyes burned with madness. I regret nothing, he roared, his voice echoing off the walls. Guards surged forward as he tried to lunge across the dock. They held him down. Shackles clinked as he screamed curses. Dr. Shin broke into sobs and collapsed onto the floor. Forgive me, Your Honor. Forgive me, Chairman. I betrayed everything I swore to uphold. I deserve whatever punishment comes. The judge's gavel thundered one final time. The hall fell into tense silence. Her voice was firm and unshaken. This court has heard enough. Kang Min-ho, you are guilty of attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and greed of the highest order. You are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor. May your chains remind you of the life you tried to bury. Kang Min-ho screamed as guards dragged him away. His voice echoed through the corridors. It should have been mine, all mine. The judge turned to Dr. Shin. And you, Dr. Shin Dong-hyuk, were entrusted with life, but chose to deal in death. Your betrayal of your sacred oath is unforgivable. This court sentences you to life imprisonment as well. You will never again hold the life of another in your hands. Dr. Shin collapsed into his chair, too broken to resist, as officers led him out. The gavel struck a final time. Court dismissed. The hall erupted. Some clapped, others wept, all buzzed with the weight of history being made. Reporters rushed outside to broadcast the verdict. Chairman Park, exhausted, sank into his seat. His body trembled with relief and lingering pain. He whispered, "It is over." But beside him, Grace shook her head gently. "No, sir. It is only the beginning. You have your life again. Now the question is, what will you do with it?" He turned to her. His eyes were soft. His lips trembled with gratitude. "I would not be here without you. You had no status, no security, yet you gave me both. Grace, you saved me." Grace looked away. Her voice was quiet. "I only did what I could not do before. My husband, my son. I failed them, but this time I could not fail." Chairman Park touched her hand. His grip was firm and warm. "You did not fail," he said. "You were my miracle." Around them people gathered, trying to shake Grace's hand, clapping her on the back, praising her name. She had been invisible for years, a shadow in the household. Now she stood in the brightest light. The woman who stopped a burial, the woman who saved a billionaire. Chairman Park rose, still holding her hand. "You will not return to the servants' quarters tonight," he said firmly. "From this day forward, you walk beside me. If I have been given a second life, then so will you." Grace's throat tightened. Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded in silence. For the first time in years, she felt seen. And as they left the courtroom together, Chairman Park, his aunt and Grace at his side, the crowd outside roared like thunder. Cameras flashing, voices chanting her name. Grace, Grace, the woman who stopped death. And though chains had closed around Kang Min-ho and Dr. Shin, new doors were opening. Doors that neither Chairman Park nor Grace had ever imagined. The battle for justice was won, but the journey of redemption had only just begun. The heavy doors of Chairman Park's mansion opened to a new season of life. The house that once carried the scent of morning now breathed fresh air, its corridors filled with sunlight and hope. But behind the glow, the scars of betrayal still lingered. After the trial ended and Kang Min-ho and Dr. Shin were sentenced, Chairman Park invited Grace to stay at his estate. One evening after dinner, he led her into his private study. The room was lined with dark wooden shelves, books stacked in neat rows. A single lamp cast a warm, golden glow. Chairman Park poured 2 cups of tea and gestured for Grace to sit. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the cup. For a long time she stared into it as though searching for courage. Finally she spoke. Her voice was low and raw. "Sir, there is something I have carried alone for many years. Tonight, I must tell you." Chairman Park leaned forward. His eyes were soft with concern. Grace swallowed hard. "I was not always like this," she said. "I was once a woman with dignity, a teacher, a wife, a mother, but one day everything collapsed. War came to my village. I lost my job. My husband was taken from me in the violence, and my son," her voice broke, "my little boy. He was caught in the crossfire. I held him in my arms as he took his last breath. Chairman Park's eyes widened. Tears sprang to them. Grace pressed her palms together tightly. The pain destroyed me. I wandered for months, unable to breathe, unable to live. I fled my country. I worked wherever I could, cleaning, cooking, surviving. I slept in places no human should sleep because hope had abandoned me. Her shoulders trembled. But yesterday I overheard Kang Min-ho in his car. He was on the phone, planning to seize everything after you were buried. His words froze my blood. That is why I ran to the cemetery. That is why I stopped them. For a long moment silence filled the study. Only the faint ticking of a clock could be heard. Chairman Park's hands shook as he reached across the table and clasped hers. "Grace," he whispered, tears streaking his cheeks. "You carried all that pain and still you risked everything for me. Do you understand what that means?" Grace's voice cracked. "It means perhaps I still have a reason to exist." In the days following her confession, Chairman Park refused to let Grace slip back into the shadows of his mansion. He saw something in her, not just a woman who had saved his life, but a mind sharpened by hardship and loss. At first Grace resisted. "Sir, I am no longer the woman I once was. Let me serve you quietly in the background," she said one morning as she helped organize files in his study. But Chairman Park shook his head. "You will not hide anymore. You gave me back my life. Let me give you back yours." So Grace began helping with small duties at Hansung Group, organizing documents, reviewing schedules, preparing reports. She moved with humility, keeping her head down. Yet little by little, her hidden brilliance emerged. One afternoon during a tense board meeting, the company's directors struggled with a critical translation issue. An important contract from a partner company in Nigeria had arrived, and no one could properly interpret the cultural nuances. Panic spread as the deadline approached. While others fumbled, Grace quietly stepped forward. In minutes she clarified the language, corrected misunderstandings, and even suggested improvements to the proposal. Gasps filled the room. "Where did you learn that?" a director asked in disbelief. Grace hesitated. "I was a teacher once. Languages were my specialty, before everything fell apart." Chairman Park's eyes softened with pride. He rose and announced firmly, "From today, Grace is no longer working in the background. She is my special advisor. Her counsel will guide this company." The board members exchanged looks, some skeptical, others intrigued, but no one could deny the calm authority in Chairman Park's voice. For the first time in years, Grace stood tall, no longer a nameless servant. She was a woman reborn, and with her guidance, Hansung Group entered a new chapter stronger than before. Chairman Park and Grace grew closer. They spent evenings in his study talking about life, faith, loss, and second chances. He admired her honesty, her unpolished wisdom, her sincerity that cut deeper than diamonds. For the first time since his betrayal, Chairman Park found his heart stirring. Quietly, he wished Grace might see him not as the powerful chairman the world knew, but as a man whose soul had been bruised. Yet Grace never seemed to notice the silent longing in his eyes. One afternoon, as they walked through the garden behind the mansion, Grace spoke with unusual brightness. "Sir, I want you to meet someone. Her name is Yunji. She works at the community center downtown. She is kind and gentle. She makes me believe in goodness again. I think you would like her." Chairman Park's heart clenched. He forced a smile even as his chest ached. He had hoped foolishly that Grace might see him as more than a friend. But reality stood firm. She was introducing him to another woman. That night, Chairman Park sat alone in his study. Yet by morning he had resolved his disappointment into acceptance. "If Grace believes this woman is worthy of my attention, then I will trust her judgment." Months later, Chairman Park proposed to Yunji. She was everything Grace had described: kind, gentle, full of quiet strength. Grace insisted on helping plan the wedding. "It is my honor," she told him, her smile hiding the complicated emotions in her heart. The wedding day was beautiful. The garden was decorated with white roses and golden silk. Chairman Park stood tall in a traditional hanbok, his eyes glowing as Yunji, dressed in an elegant white gown, walked toward him. Grace watched from the front row, her eyes glistening. Though some part of her heart ached with feelings she had never fully named, she felt peace, seeing him happy. When they exchanged vows, she clapped with genuine joy, whispering to herself, "This is what he deserves. Love, laughter, a new beginning." Months after Chairman Park's marriage fate surprised Grace as well. At a charity event, she met David, a businessman from Lagos who had built his company from nothing. He admired Grace not for any status, but for her spirit, her resilience, her warmth. Their friendship grew into something deeper. David brought laughter back into Grace's life. For the first time since losing her family, she felt whole again. When David proposed, Grace said yes. At her wedding, Chairman Park and Yoonji sat proudly in the front row, clapping as she walked down the aisle. This time there were no tears of regret, only gratitude and joy. 1 year later, life blossomed again in the most beautiful way. Chairman Park and Yoonji welcomed a baby boy whom they named Minho, a name reclaimed and given new meaning. Around the same time, Grace and David celebrated the birth of their baby girl, whom they named Hope. One golden evening, they gathered in the mansion's garden, the babies cradled in their arms. Chairman Park rocked Minho gently, while Grace held Hope close to her chest. Tears filled their eyes as they looked at each other. They remembered how close death had come, how betrayal had nearly buried them both. Yet here they were, alive, surrounded by laughter, holding the promise of a future in tiny, innocent hands. Chairman Park raised his glass. "From ashes to dawn," he said softly. Grace smiled and whispered back, "Yes, from ashes to dawn." But one name was never completely forgotten: Kang Min-ho. In prison, Min-ho was a broken man. The arrogance that once fueled him had crumbled beneath the weight of iron bars. Life behind walls gnawed at him. Every night he replayed the moment he watched Chairman Park rise from the casket. He began writing letters from prison, begging for forgiveness. At first, Chairman Park ignored them, but the letters never stopped. They grew humbler. Soaked with regret, "Jaewon, I was blind, greed consumed me. If I could turn back time, I would kneel at your feet and beg forgiveness 1,000 times. Please, let my story be a warning to others." 10 years later, on the 10th anniversary of Chairman Park's survival, he shocked the nation. At a grand celebration where his family, Grace, David, and their children stood beside him, he made an announcement. 10 years ago, I nearly went to the grave because of betrayal. But today I choose not to let hatred bury me instead. I forgive Kang Min-ho. The hall gasped. Some clapped. Others murmured in disbelief. But Chairman Park's eyes were firm. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is freedom. If my survival is to mean anything, it must teach us that love, not vengeance, writes the final chapter. Weeks later, Kang Min-ho was released after serving 10 long years. He walked out of prison a frail man. His once proud face was lined with regret. He had nothing left. No wealth, no family, no power. In a tiny rented room on the outskirts of Seoul, he lived quietly. Whenever Chairman Park appeared on television, smiling with Yoonji, laughing with little Minho, Minho would sit alone, tears running down his face. He whispered to the empty walls, "Greed destroyed me. Let my mistake teach others what I failed to see." Back at the mansion, Chairman Park and Grace often sat in the garden together with their families, watching their children play. They spoke not of betrayal anymore, but of hope. Chairman Park would smile at Grace and say, "We lived through death, and now we live for life." And as the sun set behind them, painting the sky with golden fire, their story stood as a testament that even from the grave hope can rise, that from betrayal love can still bloom, that from ashes dawn will always come. It is a story about courage, about gratitude, about seeing a human being when the world has overlooked them, about saving a life, and in doing so finding the path to saving your own, and in the end, like a gentle promise whispered back to life itself, from ashes dawn always comes. If you have reached the end of this story, thank you for staying. I hope Chairman Park and Grace's journey touched you in a special way. Do you believe someone in your life has ever saved you, even with just a word or a small, quiet act of kindness? Share it in the comments below. I read every story you share. And if you believe in the power of kindness, in healing, and in the second chances life brings, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story that reaches the heart. See you on our next journey. Thank you for being here.